Gold and silver. Sure, buddy. You know, quit prank calling me. I don't need this. Who wants to be a millionaire? This ain't Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. What do you mean?
Chum.
No, you know, please stop calling me.
Wait. Hello?
Do you want to win any of these items on your screen? If so, be sure to watch the whole video, leave a like, and comment the hidden message. And with that being said, let's get right into the video.
Chumlee, a cast member on the infamous reality TV show Pawn Stars, is known on the show and in his office as either the clumsy clerk or the sneaky con man. Some say if you don't know who the Chumlee in your workplace is, then in all likeliness, it's you. In this video, we'll look at 8 times Chumlee conned a customer or was involved with the conning of a customer, and whether it works out or blows up in his face. Make sure you stick around until number 1, where we see how Chumlee got a priceless bust without paying a cent. Number 8. Chumlee the Walrus.
I'm selling a limited edition animation cell, Tennessee Tuxedo, featuring Stanley the zookeeper.
Chumlee is a co-cast member on the TV show Pawn Stars. He's not directly related to the family behind the show, but is good friends with Corey Harrison, the grandson of the renowned old man. Chum's known as being a bumbling fool around the store, frequently getting into trouble over either the purchase of a useless item or breaking items in the store, one such case being that he broke a bass guitar that was left after it fell from where it was standing, and Chum, being sneaky, but a little dim, simply told no one and waited until the customer returned to find the bass in 2 pieces. The shop ultimately ended up owing the customer $20,000. Chum is well known for conning customers or making deals without the correct knowledge of the items in question. At least it seems like he has little knowledge. When a print comes in from the animated TV show Tennessee Tuxedo, Corey and Chumlee's eyes light up. A character in the show is an incompetent walrus named Chumlee who, without fail and in every episode, messes up Tennessee Tuxedo's chance to escape from the zoo they're held in. Corey sees the infallible resemblance and points it out rather quickly. Chumlee makes no effort to disagree and has fun with it himself. The banter seems to be quite disarming for the seller. When the haggling begins, Chumlee and Corey talk the seller down to $250 from his starting price of $350, all without asking an expert to come in and appraise it. This deal may seem to be a good one for the seller, but Corey and Chum know exactly what they're dealing with and use sly bartering techniques to diminish the apparent value of the print by pointing out the year of production, which was 1993, the lack of an artist's signature, and by saying they will just hang the piece in the store solely as a memory of Chumlee. In reality, once the seller walks out with his $250, Chumlee and Corey resell the piece weeks later at an auction for a massive $800, as the piece turns out to be one of the last prints left with a specific executive's signature on it, ultimately swindling the previous owner for $550. Number 7. Definitely not a flamethrower.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Is that what I think it is?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's not a flamethrower.
Let's check it out.
Let's check it out.
In 2017, Elon Musk, founder of SpaceX and PayPal, came out with an interesting concept to promote his business, The Boring Company. He began selling completely legal flamethrowers that were packaged and sent out under the guise that they should not be put together under any circumstances in a way that would create a flamethrower. The weapons were ingeniously called Not a Flamethrower. The non-flamethrowers were sold initially for $500 on the Boring Company website. They then ceased production on the product after selling tens of thousands of them in 2018. Nowadays, they're very hard to come by for sale and can be quite expensive. When one of Elon Musk's Not a Flamethrowers came into the store, Chumlee was the man to take care of it. The seller came in wanting to sell the weapon for $2,400. Chumlee wasn't going to take that. Though he may seem like a doofus, Chumlee is a good haggler. He knows the selling value for a lot of what comes into the store and knows how to take advantage of a customer's lack of experience and lack of knowledge of the item they have. Chumlee ultimately talks the seller down to a minuscule $1,400 for an item that's widely known in pop culture and is no longer produced. The seller walks out happy, and Chumlee walks away making a huge profit. The Not a Flamethrower sells now online at around $5,000 used, and much more new. But in classic Chumlee style, he has to go out back and test it out first. After a few minutes of playing around, Rick Harrison, a co-owner and manager in the gold and silver pawn shop, stops Chum in his tracks and asks him what the hell he's doing. Chumlee gets yelled at by Rick for making a stupid purchase and then playing with the item in the back when he should be clearly working. Little did Rick know, the weapon Chum bought is a big part of modern popular culture and is highly sought after. The not a flamethrower, which was modeled satirically after a weapon from the movie Spaceballs, went on to make some serious money for Chum and for the shop. Number 6. Fingers crossed.
How can I help you?
I have an antique Chinese fingernail guard.
Chumlee may joke around a lot on the show, annoying most, if not all, of his coworkers while doing so, but he's not bad at his job, as is shown occasionally on the reality TV show. When an antique Chinese fingernail guard comes into the pawn shop, he knows quite quickly what he's dealing with and the possible value of what the lady wants to sell. He speaks with the customer for some time, gathering all the information he can before making any offer. He jokes with the seller, disarming her completely, even adding a few bits of useful information, like how silver fingernail guards are more rare than most and were worn by the most elite class in ancient China. Chumlee ends up buying the piece for a price the customer is happy with. However, Chum knows he can make much more than what the seller and we expect. He gives her just $240 for the ancient piece of metal and takes it to be appraised after. When Rick, an expert, and Chum sit down to have the item fully appraised, Chumlee can't help but gloat about how little he got the item for, and Rick soon discovers the deal was a serious steal for Chum. The expert reveals that this is in fact a very rare find and could be a huge piece of ancient Chinese Manchurian history. The silver artifact was possibly even worn by Wu Shi himself, a famous Chinese aristocrat, and could go in an auction house easily for $750, if not much more. The fingernail guards were worn on each finger of the most powerful women in China. The longer your fingernails, the less work you do with your hands, meaning you are both richer and you have more servants that do work for you. Rick surprisingly didn't know this himself and was somewhat embarrassed that Chumlee had a better grasp on a piece of history than he, and may even just give Chum the benefit of the doubt next time. But he probably won't. I know I wouldn't. Number 5. Thrifter's Paradise.
Black Sabbath.
Rock and roll.
That's right.
So these are early Black Sabbath when they were on the Vertigo label.
Chum is a bit of a metalhead, as he's well known in the store, and when a couple of Black Sabbath albums came into the shop, Chumlee knows straight away this is right down his wheelhouse. He inspects the records with the seller, admiring the condition and the fact that the poster is still in the pack, which is very rare. He then uses his con artist skills again and diminishes the item's value in the eyes of the seller, pointing out the tear in the poster will bring down the value, among other things. Black Sabbath were an English rock band formed in Birmingham in 1968 by guitarist and main songwriter Tony Iommi, drummer Bill Ward, bassist and main lyricist Geezer Butler, and singer Ozzy Osbourne. The two albums that came into the store were their first album, self-titled Black Sabbath, which was Sabbath's first big hit and held #1 in the charts for over a year in 1970, and the other was Master of Reality, their third album, which reached the top 10 in the US and the United Kingdom and was certified gold in less than 2 months after the release, eventually receiving platinum certification in the 1980s and double platinum in the early 21st century. Chum and the customer settle on a price for the two records, along with something else the seller brought in, and walk away, a price which, once you discover what they're selling for in most auctions, is a complete cheat. Chum picks the items up for just $300, when the customer, quite rightly, wanted $800 for them. However, the deal is done and Chumlee gets them taken off to be appraised. Once with the appraiser, Chumlee gets the big news. The appraiser himself is surprised by the rarity of the two vinyls and compliments his find. The markings are all there, the poster, a lack of scratches, both first presses. Chumlee is in for a big profit. He finds out the records are worth $1,200 together, 4 times what he bought them for. The vinyls are now listed on the Pawn Stars website for $540 and $720 respectively. Unfortunately for the seller, way more than the $300 he himself sold them for. Number 4. Chumlee, Samurai Warrior.
I don't know if you're gonna be okay on this one, dude.
Dude, I'm gonna be fine, Corey. I paid under $5 grand for these.
Chumlee seems to be a man to make quick, uninformed decisions. The fortunate thing for him is they usually pay off. In season 14 of Pawn Stars, Chumlee, thinking he was a samurai sword expert, paid $3,900 on a set of 3 samurai swords, which were supposedly ancient. Rick was unimpressed, believing Chum just paid someone almost $4,000 for a load of useless junk. The reality of it was quite different. Rick and Chum see a samurai sword expert to get the pieces looked at. Rick feels he is dead right and that Chum will have to eat his words. After appraising the swords for a few minutes, the expert tells them 3 things. 1. The swords are actually forgeries of work of a famous Japanese craftsman. 2. They are each at least 600 years old. And 3. They are worth easily $13,000 altogether. In ancient Japan, there were a handful of famous and skilled swords craftsmen working at any one time. Once coming to the end of their career, they would hand down the craft to trainees who would then produce samurai swords to their own standards, and the cycle would repeat. These famous craftsmen would have the opportunity to sell their swords at a high price and to the most revered men in all of Japan. So of course, there would be some people attempting to disguise their work as the work of a famous craftsman in order to sell their pieces at higher prices. These swords were usually to an equal quality, but would not have the same signature as the famous swords, so they would simply just fake it and sell it on. Those fake swords have survived to the present day and are just as sought after as any other. Chum throws all of this in Rick's face and gloats about his hidden talents as a samurai expert. Rick quickly jumps to compare Chumlee's victory closer to winning a slot machine than having any actual skill. Ultimately, Chumlee unknowingly picked up ancient relics from a customer that had no idea what they were selling, and then he unknowingly made a huge profit from the seller's mistake. It makes you think, does Chum really do these things unknowingly, or is he actually just a con man playing dumb? Number 3, a quick deal.
Dude, that thing's sweet.
This is wonderful.
Nice. Ooh-wee.
Oh, wow, this thing's pretty cool.
No freaking way.
In an off chance, while running errands for the store, Chum comes across a vintage Spacelander bike. The style of bike definitely catches the eyes, and it seemed to pull Chumlee's eyes right out. Chum jumps out of his car and runs up the driveway to see the bike. The owner is happy to let him look at it, but seems caught off guard. Benjamin Bowden, an automobile designer, was a designer of the Spacelander, a space-age bicycle which was commercially unsuccessful when in production, but has since become a collector's item. The bicycle was priced at $89.50 in the 1950s, which made it one of the more expensive bicycles on the market at the time. The fiberglass frame was relatively fragile, and its unusual nature made it difficult to market to established bicycle resellers. In the end, only 522 Spacelander bicycles were actually sold and shipped before production was halted. Chumlee, knowing most of this, asks the man how much he would like to sell it for. The man quickly responds with $20,000, and Chum refutes that right away. Quickly, Chum fires back with $8,700, and the man accepts it with a shrug, happy to get it off of his hands, but not actually understanding the real value of what he holds. Chumlee must have known that nowadays these bikes are hugely popular both among hipsters and enthusiasts alike and can easily sell for $40K to $50K. He brings the deal home to his boss, getting praise from the owner and manager. But you can't help but think, did that man know what he was selling, and was Chumlee taking advantage of the older man who was clearly not selling it outright? Number 2, an honest scam.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. I have what should be in every home in America.
A toaster oven.
Better than that, a lie detector.
When a man walks in sporting a kid's lie detector from the 1950s, Chumlee can't help himself but get a little hot under the collar. Rumor has it he has some secrets that he doesn't want anyone knowing. However, when he continues to look at it, he starts seeing dollar signs instead. This vintage kid's lie detector was brought to market in the 1940s after lie detectors entered pop culture in and around the 1930s. They were produced for a few years and then discontinued. Chumlee knows most of this, however, the customer doesn't. Our seller first asks for $500, but Chumlee shoots this down immediately. He then uses more of his scamming skills and mentions that these usually sell for $50 and that he would give him the full $50. To someone who knew the history in the market, they would be rather offended by this offer, but this customer decides to take the money and walk. When the item was bought up, it went for way closer to $500 than $50. This goes to show, just because a person is playing dumb doesn't mean they know exactly what they're doing. Chumlee is showing a pattern of coming across as aloof and funny when really he knows quite a lot about what he's doing. Number 1, the bust of Madonna.
I'm hoping you can help me with this. A bronze Madonna bust.
As we've seen from other deals, Chumlee seems to come across interesting items and ends up making a big profits for the shop. Whether he does it on purpose or by accident, he usually cheats the customers out of a few hundred or a few thousand to make himself some extra money. He knew he was going to make some profit when a Vatican-sealed bust came through the door. The bust was an exact casting of treasured sculpture of Western civilization, Michelangelo's masterwork, the Pietà. A sculpture of the Virgin Mary, which graces the Vatican, is considered Michelangelo's most perfect work and is the only sculpture he ever signed. This Madonna della Pietà bronze bust was commissioned through the Vatican and cast from plaster, done when the original in Rome was repaired in the 1970s. The new Renaissance Art Corporation obtained a license from the Vatican to cast 500 bronze pieces and sell them on to collectors. Chum sees an opportunity to make some big money. The seller is asking for $80,000, which, based on its quality, would have been a fair ask, but since it's a pre-owned bust, the price decreases significantly. Once an expert comes in to have a look, he puts the real price down around $35,000. After a moment of haggling, Chum offers his final $23,000 and the seller feels forced to accept. But after a moment's thought, the customer spots a tray of silver on the other side of the store. He decides he'd like to trade the bust for the trade of silver, knowing that the prices are similar. Chumlee, sporting a scammer's mind, realizes that the price of silver is going down and jumps at the customer's offer. In reality, the customer only got $20,000 or less from the deal, and Chumlee got rid of some leftover silver. Instead of the market price of $35,000, our customer walks away with not far off from half of that. Unfortunately for the Pawn Stars and for Chumlee, the deal was not close to worth it for either party. The Madonna bust has sat in display at the store for a couple of years at the price tag of $30,000 and seems to have not a single buyer interested. Do you think Chumlee deserves the bank he makes off some of these items? Tell us all about it in the comments. Remember to give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for similar content. See you in the next video.
A simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's really your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. Go for it.